Looks like we got an interesting. Looks like we have an interesting story here. It's about J.P. Morgan, and not linked with silver, but it's actually going to put a dampener on their operations in a major way. It's the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is expected to issue a cease and desist order against J.P. Morgan, which will come about sometime in the coming, well, probably by the end of 2013, sometime during this year. That's going to happen. The story actually appears originally in Reuters, but it was also repeated on a Irish newspaper, and basically I displayed a link where it's at. It's very interesting because this has major implications for J.P. Morgan. A lot of people, talking about what they're doing in the futures market. Well, this has to do with Bernie Madoff's money and how they accounted for things, and that they should have looked over things a lot better. And basically, it was alleged failures in its anti-money laundering practices. And as you know, I think it was like a little while ago in December, HSBC agreed to pay a record fine of civil and criminal fines of $1.9 billion, largely to resolve charges that had failed to detect money from drug trafficking, which was flowing from Mexico into the United States. Now, of course, Eric Holder doesn't know nothing about that. This is a big game that's going on. And actually, these people are being paid for by taxpayer salaries like Eric Holder to watch over this type of stuff, and it's all linked. But, as usual, business as usual. So it looks like, and according to Reuters, it said Thursday, J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said he expected more regulatory action against J.P. Morgan in the coming months. So he says, we received regulatory orders requiring improving performance for multiple areas, including mortgage foreclosures, which that was another area they're taking a lot of heat. Their problem with their mortgage foreclosures, with the way they're doing it. They probably don't have title in their foreclosing anyway, which has been a big accusation of a lot of banks. Anti-money laundering procedures and others. Unfortunately, she goes, we expect we'll have more of these in the coming months. So there's going to be more against them coming up, but what currently is coming up, it looks like there's going to be a cease and desist order that's going to be coming up very soon from the OCC, which is the Office of Comptroller of the Currency. I don't know what that is, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm not familiar with every one of these things out here, but what I would say, just shooting from the hip, J.P. Morgan was playing dumb on a lot of things that, Bernie Madoff was doing. Since Bernie Madoff was doing it for decades, and it was a Ponzi scheme, and all these people lost their money, and he's using J.P. Morgan's services for various things. Quite obviously, they look the other way. That's quite obvious, considering the length of time that they were dealing with each other. So I think this is going to be a slam dunk against J.P. Morgan. But, what it's going to mean for silver, not exactly sure. But, this supposedly is a big evil giant that's holding down some of the prices on silver and gold because it makes the dollar look better. But it looks like there's so many problems going on. HSBC probably did a lot less wrong, I'd assume, in laundering drug money from Mexico to the United States, and then probably J.P. Morgan. There's probably a lot more going on, and there are a lot more investigative agencies looking into this type of stuff. But really, it's going to take, what's probably going to happen with J.P. Morgan. It's not going to be something from, the gold antitrust committee and stuff. It's going to be a bunch of things, actually, which really been knocking on their door big time, as has been the way they've been dealing with mortgage foreclosures. And they got like a big, nice advertising, smooth website, shows like, helping housing and all this kind of crap with Jamie Dimon smiling and stuff. But, hey, everything is a sales pitch, to tell you the truth. It really is in a lot of ways. People trust this garbage, and the average American, they probably would trust it. They probably would, for the most part. But it looks like there's going to be a cease and desist order against J.P. Morgan pretty soon by the OCC, the Office of comptroller of currency, and for basically allowing the Ponzi scheme by Bernie Madoff. But what will be interesting is there might be more things coming up, because basically Jamie Dimon is pointing at in the coming months we will receive regulatory orders requiring improved performance in a number of areas. And, just a little common sense, considering that, HSBC got a record fine this past December of $1.9 billion, I would assume that JP Morgan's in the same boat. They do the same type of things, and probably worse. Probably a lot worse. So there could be things brewing behind the scenes that'll bring them down. So if they get brought down somehow due to several things, the Ponzi scheme with Bernie Madoff, there's a problem with the way they're doing like a lot of these mortgage foreclosures. There's a lot of actions against them over that. I've seen this for the last couple of years actually on the mortgages. But I would think there might be something, I don't know this for a fact, but just using a little common sense, I think there's something brewing behind the scenes about money laundering with drug dealing and stuff, because HSBC's been guilty of it. I assume I'd almost, a little common sense would tell you JP Morgan's involved in that too. So they might get hit from a few different areas besides the stuff with the silver futures market and things like that, which might actually bring the whole damn house of cards down. This is one reason Mark Faber's been buying physical gold. You can't trust these bastards with anything. Anything, period. If they're accounting for something, it all looks nice on the outside, but it ain't. It's a mess. The actual finalized reports and stuff might look really nice, but if you dig down, you find a lot of things, and nobody's digging down. Supposedly they're supposed to be watching over their own stuff, but they're not. There was a time when professionals were respected due to their integrity. No longer. Pretty much, nobody respects the attorney or the doctor too much, and probably the CPA. A lot of people just don't respect them, and this is the reason why. They're dishonest. That's what it comes down to. So it looks like JP Morgan's in a lot more hot water. It has nothing to do with silver, and like I said, it could be other things going on. Maybe they are being investigated for the same type of stuff HSBC was investigated for. You'll never see that in print because nobody's going to say nothing about how it's going until it actually comes out and they get charged with stuff. That's the way it works. But it looks like HSBC is taking a lot of heat over the way they handled in their involvement, decades-long involvement with Bernie Madoff and his Ponzi scheme, which, by the way, Bernie Madoff is supposedly serving 150 years in jail right now. 150 years. So that tells you, the kind of severity that even some of the top officers in JP Morgan, type of severe charges maybe some of the top officers in JP Morgan could be facing someday. You never know. You never know what's brewing behind the scenes. There's a lot more going on with JP Morgan than just shorting silver. A lot more. And it's anybody's guess when the thing's going to come down. But say big companies, big financial institutions like JP Morgan came down, and other institutions like that were, forced to diminish in size and pay major regulatory fees, or civil and criminal fees. What would happen? It would probably create another banking calamity. And this is something that could snowball out of effect. So that's one of your reasons why you buy the physical metals. We haven't had this communist dork paper freaking system for that long, actually, and think about it, in the history of the world. It's been gold and silver all before that. There's just so much dishonesty in the system. That's the problem why the electronic system and the paper system isn't working. And I guess it ain't going to work too well in the future either if you always have dishonest people, and there's always people tempted to, take a little extra out of it by, issuing money that isn't actually there. So, we'll see what happens with this, but it looks like JP Morgan's going to get knocked out while they're on the ropes here pretty soon, so who the hell knows?